Hi guys, thanks for tuning into the channel today. Just thought I'd do an update on this, and I've clocked now 200 kilometres on the bike. The bike's been running well and pretty happy with the way the bike looks, and especially on this transformation of the solo seat on the B5. That looks pretty period style. I think if anything I've thrown an extra 20 years on the bike, and I think the bike looks like it's around about 50 or 70 years old and looks almost fully restored too for a new bike. So I'm pretty happy with the outcome of that, and if you're here looking for the first time, if you're interested in subscribing to the channel or giving the clip a thumbs up, please do. It'd be greatly appreciated. And we'll swing on to this part, what I'm here for. So I'll put 200 kilometres on the bike, so I think now we'll swing into it, and I'm going to give this bike an oil and filter change. And with these particular bikes, I like to get in early and do one at 200, 500 and 1000 kilometres, because I think it's very important to remove all the rubbish and contaminants from the motor itself. And I've been running a magnet on the sump plug itself to draw out hopefully more material floating around in the motor, so we'll see if that helps on this. In the early bikes I picked up a bit more rubbish, but on the later C5 and B5s they may be a bit cleaner in the motor, but we'll see what happens. So what I'll do now is get into it, and we'll do the oil change, see how it goes, and it'll be good then. From 200 to 500 we'll repeat the same procedure again. So I've got 204 k's on the clock today. There's a bit involved in doing an oil filter change on this bike, and I always think it's good to get in here and do it early. So we've got 3 drain points, or actually 4. So we've got up here, that'll be a 12 mil. The main plug there, what I've got my magnets on, that's going to be a 19. The one little next to it, the screen, is going to be the same, an 8. Then we come around here, that's going to be an 8 too. And if you're on the right side of the motor and you're going to undo your plugs, if you're wondering which way you're going to do it, just pull your ratchet handle or spanner, whatever you're using, pull it towards the back wheel, left loose. That's the way you go to undo all of the 3 plugs, or all those little ones underneath, the 3 sections. Okay guys, I'll pull the magnet out now. We'll just check how my fuzzball of the magnet went. And remember, I put your rare earth magnets on the bottom there for extra draw power. So look at all the rubbish that come off this in just 200 kilometres. Let's see if we take it out in the sunlight, have a bit better look. You can see it's embedded all the way around. A little bit on top. So remember, this is only after 200 kilometres. Main sump plug came off at the 19. Now we're going to take the front plug off, and that'll be a 12 mil. Okay guys, here's something to keep in mind when you're undoing the 3/8 mil bolts here to get the old oil filter out. These ears here, which hold the filter case on, sometimes they're not what you class as really strong, and they're held on there by a bit of pressure. So if you get there and be a bit careless and let them slip off when you're undoing them, they can come out with a bit of pressure and actually break one of the ears off, usually this right hand side one. So be a bit careful there. And even when you're using a ratchet spanner, I sometimes use them just in a grip layer, so I'm not applying too much pressure when I'm tightening them up like that, so I don't overdo the tightening. So the smaller the ratchet, the less chance you got of doing it, so don't be heavy handed. But more importantly, make sure your hands are dry. In this case, no gloves for me on this one, and that way you've got no worries about it slipping, because there's a fair bit of pressure holding this case on when you undo those nuts, and it can spring out and cause you trouble that way, and it's really worse when you're trying to put it back on. So take it easy and you're safe, and then just don't undo one totally, just release a bit off this one, then over to your left, and then down the bottom, work your way around like that till it comes out, and it'll just come out gradually and all will be good. I haven't got a camera now at the moment. What I do now is usually put my thumb here like this, then just put the spanner there and work the three of them like that and get it out that way. Get the filter out. And when you look inside the cavity there, you can see I've still got the main seal right up against the wall there, so that when I slide the new oil filter in there, which is pre-soaking in oil, it beds right up against it in the correct area. So make sure that seal is in place. So there she is, right at the back. So here's the third one out, and this is one where the little filter basket sits. So if you look at it, look at the metal filings on this one. Let's see if we can see them. Maybe able to see them there. They're poking out everywhere. Might get the camera out and take a shot of that one on the other one. So we've got that one there. You can see them there at the side. So we've got that. Now if you look at the basket itself, there's a rubbish in that. Look at that. Look at the junk in that. And remember, this bike's only done 200 kilometres, which is 125 miles. So if you say to yourself now, oh yeah, maybe he's overdoing it, doing oil changes on these bikes at 200, how would you like this junk floating in there for another 300? And that's why after all these Enfields I've had, I go straight in and do a oil change at 200, 500 and 1,000, because I know what's in them. But look at that. So we've got that one heavily loaded. This one here with a big blob and metal on that one. And if we swing back over here, this one's here carrying a nice load. And this is still hard to believe, remember, only 200 kilometres. Look at the spikes of metal poking off the top of that. More importantly, ask, will it affect it? I don't think so. Have I seen them worse? Yeah, I've seen them a lot worse than this on some of the bikes I've bought. So, but I'll take a still shot here where we might be able to get a bit better shot and then bring it up on it. I've cleaned all these magnets now, they're all nice and clean. They're ready to go back in under the sump areas underneath the bike. And all will be good in that area there now until I get to 500 kilometres. On that main magnet on the 19mm, you can see all the rubbish should come out of that. I just wiped it here onto the paper. This is how much oil I pulled out of it. Pretty dark there for 200 kilometres. Looks fairly clean inside. The collection container. So all I've got to do now is fill the bike up. I can run it now to 500 k's and do the same all over again. While we're at it, here's the oil I use, and you can only get these in certain parts of the world, and Australia where they make it, and a few other places, but I use Penrite HPR Gas 10. It's a semi-synthetic oil for this bike in 10W50, and what I like this, it's got extra zinc in it, so it's good protection there for the bike. Now, I know some of you will probably say, oh well, Enfield recommends 15W50. Yeah, well, I think it also depends on what part of the world you live in and the climate and all things like that. But just to give you an idea, I've been using this Penrite now in 10W50 for the last maybe 9 years, ever since it was put onto it by a motorcycle shop. It sells Enfields, and I've had a huge amount of Enfields and never had any problems with this oil in the bikes. But if you look at another way, where I've had trouble with other things on the bikes is jumping in early on a running period and putting sports exhaust on them, and then running out and riding the bikes hard and then burning out the valves. Now that's a totally different story, but I've never had any trouble with this oil, but I've had trouble with the bikes by not following the running period. So I can just slide this pre-soaked oil filter straight back into there now, tighten her up, then get back onto the plugs underneath, which is 3 lots under there which I've got to tighten up. Then we'll just drain the oil into another container and take a look at it. Just be careful and bring them all in, bed them at the same time nearly. They're all there now like that. And sort of when you don't need a huge amount of pressure on these ones to tighten them, so that's up bedded in. That was just a fraction of a turn after that tightener. No heavy handiness, and then if you get there and decide later on you need a little bit more pressure on it, you can just apply a little bed later on, come back over it. But it's better to give it not as enough compared to too much, and then snap your bolts off, and then you've got to get easy out and all that to get it all under control. There. Oh, look at all the oils coming out the bottom. Look.
Where?
It could have been, but I put the plugs in. Well, this is it till 500 k's. This is Penrite, the good oil. Okay guys, we've got everything sealed up in under here. All the plugs back on. Magnets back in position. Just adjust me oil temp gauge here. You can rotate it whichever direction you want to whip it in once you tighten her in position. It rotates at the thing, whatever angle you want. And I've noticed it's been up around 20, 40, around that 40, 50 centigrade mark so far on a couple of runs. So that appears to be working alright. So that's about all I can tell you. So this bike is warmed up a little bit according to my temperature gauge, and usually I find when I'm doing an oil change I can get out, ride at roughly 25-30 k's, come back, dump the oil, and I wouldn't class the oil as hot, it'll be just warm, and that's how long it takes. So if you think you can do it in a couple of minutes and warm it up, it's not the case. I've had a bit of look under the motor after it run for a couple of minutes and no sign of leaks, and more importantly, can't take too much notice of that idea, so the best idea is take it for a run there around town, 15-20 kilometres, come back, check all the areas, make sure it's not leaking from anywhere. If so, give it a little fraction of a nip up, and then after that you should be okay. Meanwhile, notice this heel and toe shifter. I've been riding the bike too with that on, and I tell you what, it's really good. So if you have any thoughts about a heel and toe shifter, or you think to yourself, or you've thought to yourself, no, it's a silly idea, once you get onto one, or if you've ridden a bike with one on before, and then you come to this idea and think you'll try, I think the shifts are a lot more positive with that heel and toe shifter, a lot easier to get in the gear, and you can pick those up off Hitchcock's, and I think they're really good value for the money for what they are. They're not all that expensive, and they'll help definitely improve your shifting on this bike, so that's a good tip for you. Apart from that, this bike's going really well. Not really much vibration this bike, a little bit, but nothing to get too excited about, so apart from that, it's running well. So we'll head on now and out for a bit of a run, and then push it towards that 500 kilometre mark and see how it performs in that area. So once again, thanks for tuning in, taking a look. If you want any more details on these oil procedures, you can go back on my clips and pick it up there in more detail, but this is just a rough idea how to do it. So I'll catch up with you on the next clip.